one of the most important questions to ask or to understand about applicants is, why did they choose care? Why are you attracted to work in this sector? And that's one of my favourite screening questions to ask, which we'll look at later on. But motivation, which is what we're really talking about here, really matters. So I found research on motivation of frontline care staff from the US. So Northwestern University in 2012 did a very interesting study where they mapped the motivations of hundreds of care workers. So they're looking to see why they came into the sector. And they found broadly there were three groups. About 60% of the workforce came because they described they had a calling. This was really the right thing for them to do, and it was the priority for them. It's the right place. They want to help others. They can't help themselves. So that was about 60% of the workforce. And about 8% of the workforce were heading on to typically nursing. They had another career in mind, often in healthcare. And while they were with that care company, they were doing great work, but they're not going to stay forever. So that was an 8% of the workforce. And the remaining kind of roughly 30% were people who felt trapped either in the role they're in, they felt they couldn't get another job somewhere else, too frightened to leave, or they chose the job almost because they were forced to, because it was the only available thing, or it was very local, or it was all they thought they could do. They did not have a calling for the work, it was simply a job. And then what the university did was they looked at home care clients, because in home care you can tie one particular client with a care worker and see the relationship and the impact on that on a one-to-one basis. And what they discovered, removing every other variable, was a huge increase from about 25% to 60% in fractures and falls reported by the client being cared for when the care worker's motivation was not love, but rather it was just a job. So a huge implication for the impact on the quality of care you give by choosing people that are motivated to care. It's very important that we always go after those people rather than taking people that just want any kind of job. So, returning to our cloned care worker exercise, what results did you get? Because when we looked at the motivation amongst those cloned care workers, over hundreds and hundreds of times of doing this, we have found that over 50% of the motivation was around a family care experience, that they'd previously cared for a loved one and realised the intrinsic rewards of care. So then they had a calling for care. So this is a very significant finding, and you probably have found a similar thing in your cloning exercise too. So that tells us a lot about the types of people we're going to go after and also where we'll find them. So we'll return to the value of that finding later in the course. But I think the important takeaway is that care skills can be taught. We're doing training all of the time. Motivation cannot be. And our starting point to build a strong and caring workforce should always be people with the right motivation.